Okay, video lesson time. What I like to do is, I like to do this for me too. If you remember the Mayor Silver Sky video, and I was like, there's that little snippet that really caught my ear, and I put like 3-4 hours into just trying to learn it. So I did the same thing. There was this little part in the Eric Gales, the Dublin thing that you liked. It's this part right here. I didn't quite get that jazz chord at the end, but I was going to figure that part out for you, and this is the esoteric thing I wanted to talk to you about. So to me it seems like this guy, and I obviously think he's an amazing player, totally respect his playing, but it seems like from what I was getting, he's like completely self-taught as well. That's what it seems to me, and that's just like amazing, because what he's doing in the beginning, hilariously, is kind of like an Yngwie Malmsteen lick, but the way he's playing it and the way he's arranged it is very different. So when I was trying to learn it, first of all, he's in E flat, I was in normal E, and then I was just watching the video. Like I said, I have it queued up right now, and his fingering and stuff, my ears were telling me one thing, and his fingering, I was trying to, follow what he was doing, and his fingering was just not what I would use. So what I want to do is kind of put a couple things together. We talked about chords yesterday, and that whole thing he's doing in the beginning, that whole little twiddling around, is basically an E minor, and all he's doing is moving different ideas in E minor around. So I want to kind of show you that. I want to show you kind of how that lick, but I'm going to show it to you the way I kind of learned it, because his way, like I said, to me, he's literally, to me, it's like he learned by ear and is picking it out, and there's all this motion that to me is kind of extraneous. So I guess I'm more of a quote-unquote technical player, because I guess I studied it from learning actual Yngwie stuff and watching his fingerings, which is super classical. So let me show you. That whole thing in the beginning is E minor. So you have an E minor chord. If I turn up the volume. Right? Okay, and generally when we do E minor, we do E minor pentatonic, right? All that stuff he's doing, E minor pentatonic. Adding a couple diatonic notes here or there. Now, where it got interesting on that lick, and I want to kind of show you how we build this stuff. There's E minor, right? You said you wanted to be able to know more diatonic moves and also know some of those chord things. So right now on E minor, here's what you know. If we're playing E minor here, you know the Hendrix. Okay, so E minor here, E minor up here as a bar chord, and okay, that's the stuff that you know now. Now let's kind of extrapolate to another shape of E minor. So you've got E minor here, and you got E minor here. Now let's play E minor on the 5th string, B minor, E minor. Now here's what you have to remember, since we're going to go a little bit more diatonic. The reason this one here is kind of easy, it's kind of based on pentatonic. If you notice, it's kind of like this idea with the pentatonic scale. Just moved around, and we don't put actually any diatonic notes in that. That was all pentatonic. So on this one though, when I come down to E minor down here, and it's a 5-string shape, here we're going to go diatonic, and the principle is pretty easy. You've got E minor, the chord, and then you have to visualize in your mind the particular shape of the E minor scale that fits over this. In this case, it's this. And basically that means that any of those notes, theoretically, can be added into this chord on top of or whatever. So this is, let me get some of that cool, I think I told you this is where I think Hendrix's version of Little Wing is a little superior, because there's times when Stevie just defaults to a pure blues move, but Hendrix is actually playing some diatonic stuff that's a little bit more melodic. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this, and what I'm going to do is... See how melodic and get that. Now that's great when you want to go full blues, but here, like I said, basically you just got to spell out, here's the notes I have, so is more or less. So you've got a little scale configuration that you've got a bed of a chord, just like you did here, but like I said, these are kind of easier pentatonic versions. So that's a great way to kind of get into it. Know a chord, know this pattern, and this, like I said, is where I think Hendrix beats Stevie a little bit, because he's he does it on the A minor where he goes, where Stevie just keeps it that straight blues thing. Okay, now let's talk about the, I want to do two things here. I want to kill a couple birds with one stone. You know a 1-4-5 real well, which is the blues shuffle. So I'll just go to E. So you know a 1-4-5, right? That's the pattern of a blues. 4 up to the 5, right? Now a chord is built from 1-3-5. So you go 1, 3, there's your 4, your 3 is just underneath, and then 5. I'm sure you've heard Hotel California, you already know that shape. Now there's 2 3s, 4 and the 5, there's just 1 4 and 1 5, but there's 2 3s. There's a major 3 and a minor 3, and that's how you know if your chord's major or minor. The 1 tells you what you are, that's E, and then where you are, sorry, you're in E. And then the 3 tells you if it's either a major or minor 3, it's the value of the chord, that's what you are. The 5 just holds everything together. A power chord is a root 5. It only has the root and the 5, so that's why it's not really a chord. And if you notice, it doesn't really have a value. That's why it's so useful, because I can literally play anything over this. But as soon as I put a 3 in, as soon as I put this note in there, I actually make an E major chord. Now if I put this 3 in, I make an E minor chord. So, yeah, you've got 1, 4, 5, you already know that from blues. Now you've also got 1 major 3, 5, and 1 minor 3, 5. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to put this all together for you inside that kind of Eric Gales-like. So what happens is, you know a chord. You know E minor is a chord, and I think you know how to arpeggiate a chord, which is you break the chord into its component pieces. We do in the beginning of Hotel California. That's arpeggiating a chord where you play it in its component pieces. So now to play an arpeggio itself, this is why Yngwie, and this is like I said, it kind of cracked me up when I figured out what he was actually doing. This is a very classical idea he's doing. He's spelling out a arpeggio of a chord but he's not arpeggiating a chord. So literally, I think I was telling you guitar chords are spelled incorrectly. So E minor is actually spelled wrong. It should just be 1, 3, 5, and then when you get to the 1, 8 is the 1. So you just go 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. That's how if you go to piano, that's how you'd spell a chord. But on guitar, chords are spelled incorrectly a lot of times. So it's 1, 5, 8. That's 1 again. 3, or 3 is way over here instead of where it should be. And then back to the 5 and back to the 1. Okay, so here's what we're going to do is when you're an Yngwie guy, the reason you get those cool arpeggios is you do what a violin does. You see, Scott, we play one of the few instruments that can play chords. Most instruments can only play one note at a time. So, because piano and guitar can play chords, that's what makes them, kind of more complex and more fun to play, as opposed to the other instruments where you literally can only spell out a melody. So here's where we're going to have some fun here. We're going to take that idea from their way of looking at it, though. We're going to spell out a chord in its pieces, and we're going to spell it correctly. I'm going to go 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, and it spells out to very much what he's doing. So let me show you. I've got E minor, that's the chord, but what I'm going to do is, because this chord's spelled wrong, I'm just going to literally play the notes that spell out 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5 over and over again. So look, 1, 3, 5, okay? 3 further. Okay, now what I want to do is then just go to the next version of 1, 3, 5. Now, unfortunately, this is part of the problem with guitar. On piano, all the octaves are the same, so you can just whiz through some crazy 10-octave thing, or however big your piano is. But on guitar, when I shift position, I got to remember, because that tuning thing, the pattern's different. So look, I've got 1, 3, 5. Then I come up to 1, 3, 5 here. Then again, I play the next version of 1, 3, and 5. And this is spelling out an E minor chord, but it's spelling it out in its component pieces. So I'm literally just, the formula of E minor is 1, minor 3, 5. And that's all I'm doing. Those notes are E, G, and B. And all I'm doing is hitting E, G, B, E, G, B. So okay, so let me show you what he does. He starts on this one. We'll work it through there. What he does is he walks up in the E minor arpeggio. Now, he and I are very different, so if you watch me play it and you watch him play, you notice I should hopefully look a little bit more organized, because I'm playing it I'm playing it the way I'm explaining it to you. It's a theoretical pattern. I'm spelling out those chords where that's why I think he's just completely self-taught, because he's just moving all over the place looking for notes. Whereas I'm trying to plant in a position that may be a little more complex than your pentatonic position, but it's still a position. So it's like this. Now when you come up to this part, instead of playing an arpeggio, you switch to playing a scale. Now we're used to pentatonic scales. This scale's a little more tricky. You got to do a big stretch, and you got to play more notes. Pentatonic, 2 notes per string. Diatonic, generally 3. So I've got to go 3, 5, 7, and then next string, it's symmetrical. I play 3, 5, 7 again. Now he moves. He moved laterally. He did a whole bunch of moving. Again, our styles are a little different. You notice, because I'm a little bit more Yngwie. I looked for symmetrical shapes, and I did the move in there. So, and then you just hit the gas a little here, and then he's going to switch. So, so let me go through this for you in pieces. I'm going to have E, and all that's E minor. It may seem like a lot of stuff. It's E minor. He went to harmonic minor for one note. So look, we're going to walk up in the component pieces of E minor. Now when you get here, you're going to go to a scale form. And if you notice, there's just a little pattern there. This is more of a diatonic pattern. Since we don't bend, we got to have little ways to manipulate the notes. This is a fun one. We go up between two notes, but we move down inside that pattern, so we get what's called contrary motions. Okay, so what we want to do is do that, and then he stops here. So play that for a little. Now here he's going to go back to. He went back to pentatonic-ish for a second. He, so to say, sprinkled back in a pentatonic way of looking. So this is very Yngwie. When I finally, because my ears, my fingers were saying, dude, seems like a Yngwie lick, but I watch him do it with his fingers, and like, it doesn't seem like that at all. But note-wise, it absolutely is. So. Okay, so you're gonna go walk down. So, okay, now here's where it gets a little complicated. He's going to run through a couple ideas at once. He's going to go, when he does that little jump in the time, he goes back to, that's pure diatonic. He goes to the E minor actual scale as opposed to so you're going to have to know that as well, so some of these patterns make sense. So let me go through this again. He walks up E minor in an arpeggio. When he gets here, he abandons it for a scale that he walks in this little pattern. Now about here, kind of thinks a little pentatonic-y. Now here, there's a, that's where he jumps the beat a little. There's a little jump there. And then he's going to think E minor, but then he's going to go, and don't worry about it, I'm not giving you a lot of information here, but I just want you to kind of get used to some of the thinking here. The vast majority of this is just E minor, just more forms of it than you're used to. Only time it's going to switch is right here where it goes to E harmonic minor. So, and then you come back to an E minor and walk down. So, okay. Piece is a little difficult actually, so I gotta clean that up a little bit. So let's walk through this again. All that's E minor. You spell out the notes of E minor. These are just me going the component pieces. Now here I go walk down a scale in a little pattern. Now here you think, like I said, his thinking, you can also tell he kind of grips like this. See, he's, another reason, okay, it's diatonic. Where's my thumb? You don't see it. You see, that's why he's doing this. He's used to this form. That's why he's moving way more, moving laterally, where, you notice I'm much more like the Yngwie economy in motion. It's like drilled into you. You've got to have a form, move as little as possible. So I'm showing it you my way because it also makes a little more sense with the theory I'm trying to show you as well. So walk up E minor in its component pieces. Then here, walk down in this scale form. Shift your thinking to kind of pentatonic. Now we're going to jump, you know, so there's a jump, and they... So here you've got to do the quick little then you're going to you gotta know E minor. If you don't know E minor natural, we're gonna have to learn that. Now for a little flurry, he goes one note to harmonic minor. Now you know an E minor chord, right? He's just gonna lay down the form of an E minor and walk down. So let's go through this. You've got E minor, do a rush and then walk down. Go down one note, that makes it harmonic minor. Now when you slide your finger back up, slide it into a flat, and if you notice that makes an E minor shape. Remember, all this is E minor. It may seem like a lot of motion, but there's a drone of E minor. That's all it is. And then E minor, spell out, that's the notes of E minor, and then walk down. So I don't want this to get crazy long. I think I always ramble a little bit. Sorry about that. So, but I think that gives you a good idea of some of the principles that go into this, and a little taste of the stuff he's doing on that lick. He goes super jazzy, and I gotta tell you, that's not my forte. So I will have to bone up on some of those where, like you said, he goes. But it's just substitutions. I know the principle, I just don't know those exact forms. But basically it's this idea, if there's E minor, there's a bunch of places to play it. If he's playing a more complex form of E minor, there's a bunch of ways to move around in that. So, hope this was helpful, man. And if it seems like a lot of stuff, don't worry about it, because in the beginning it is a lot of stuff. So just take like one little piece at a time, and get I would identify your chords by their formulas and get used to the 1-3-5 idea, and then we can kind of break apart how you move into it. But if you notice, it's kind of like Steve. Remember we talked about he's just got like 3 ideas, he rotates. So with this, he's got a bigger palette, but it's the same kind of idea. You know, you play an arpeggiated chord for a little while, then you go to a scale and you play a little idea. Then you shift to a different scale and different way of thinking. You went pentatonic for a second, then you go back to being in normal minor, then you throw in a little harmonic minor, and then you go into a small arpeggio of E minor again, that little walk down to get us out. So arpeggio up through the chord, play a scale sequence, repeat those 2 notes in a little more pentatonic idea. Now we're going to shift position, jump, make that little jump in the beat. That's just a straight walk down in E minor. And then that one note makes it harmonic. You notice if you listen to that, you'll notice he gets that. Your ear should perk up a little bit, because since he hadn't thrown that in, that's what makes it so useful when you do finally deploy it. And then just walk down E minor. Okay. All right, Bubba. Hope that works for you. I'll see you soon, okay? Bye.